This is TWiT.
It is time to talk about, I think, a fascinating and a little bit terrifying story about fake IDs. Joining us to talk about a quick system for generating fake IDs and everything involved is Joseph Cox of 404 Media. Welcome back to the show, Joseph.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so thank you for being here. Of course, as I always say, thank you for writing about this. I think it's incredibly important. And we just had a regular contributor on the show who experienced a whole bunch of sort of hacks and scams and, you know, multiple tens of thousands of dollars pulled on his credit and business loans taken out in his name. And part of that involved having an ID of him that had his face, but the signature was different. And it made me kind of wonder if at the time, the people who did this did not use this program. So all of that is to say, could you start by telling us about OnlyFake, what it is and how it works?
Yeah, so OnlyFake is a website and I guess a service as well, where anybody of any sort of skill level can log on and generate, hyper-realistic photos of fake IDs in minutes. And you don't have to have any skill, like either in a technical sense or in making those IDs as well. All you need is the information that you want to have in the ID, $15 worth of Bitcoin, and basically the motivation to go and do it. It dramatically lowers the barrier of entry for generating photos of fake IDs. Wow. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's kind of incredible that, and I mean that in the negative sense, that this is possible. It's a little, again, terrifying. So it makes me kind of wonder, you know, who uses it? Obviously, on the face of it, we could say a bad actor, a person who's up to no good, but who specifically would use a tool like this, and what is it typically used for? As I kind of noted, I don't think that this is the situation as someone has just posted in our Discord, a fake ID that someone's using to buy alcohol. I imagine this is used elsewhere. Yeah, I mean, the key thing is that you're not getting a physical ID in your hand, right? And I mean, that's part of the appeal, that you don't have to wait for a criminal to send you an ID and maybe that gets intercepted in the mail or whatever. And also, of course, that takes time, right? You don't need that because, as you can see on the screen right now, is just a photo of an ID. As for the people who would use it, I mean, the cybersecurity researcher who first put me onto it, they said that they've seen it being used by criminals for bank fraud, setting up credit card accounts, and getting access to cryptocurrency accounts as well. And maybe that's creating an account in the first place, or maybe that is regaining access to one that has been locked off. But that's sort of what they've seen it being used for. But even to extrapolate from that, you can imagine all sorts of things, maybe like full-blown identity theft as well. Maybe you don't want to make an ID with your face, but with different details. Maybe you have, you know, the biographical information of a target. You have a photo of them and you just upload that and you make a driver's license of them and then make an account in their name or something like that. That honestly didn't occur to me at the time. Somebody else pointed out on Twitter after my article came out. But I think that just goes to show that the possibility is like almost endless with this, right? And we're just thinking of these new ideas constantly, these different use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what shocked me at the end in reading about what you were able to do with it. Then you start to, and I think particularly because I had just heard of this story with the contributor who was going through all of this, how suddenly it opens up the door for so many ways to kind of really dig in on, if you're focused on a specific person, you know, you're generating all of these documents and you're making it possible. You were able to try OnlyFake, and I'm curious, you know, if you're using this for automatic ID verification versus maybe with a person, since it's not physical, how successful was it? Did you find that it worked every time, that it only worked some of the time, that most of the identity verification didn't work? How did that stack up?
Yeah, so for the article, I created 2 IDs. First was a California driver's license, and the second was a British passport. Obviously, being English myself, the British passport jumped out, and especially to me, because it just looked completely authentic to me. It's like, obviously, I have a passport, and this just stood out. So when I made those, I decided, well, the IDs look great, but I want to know if they actually work for bypassing identity verification in any sort of form. There's a cryptocurrency exchange, which I've just noticed is in a lot of court records recently, is being used by criminals. That's not to say, of course, even the majority of them are criminals. I don't mean to imply that at all. It's more criminals are using this platform for some reason. So I then create an account. I go through the verification process. It asks me to provide sort of a photo of my ID. And obviously, very funnily, I only have a photo of my ID, so I have to take a photo of the photo. But it worked immediately. And I was like, oh, okay, that's quite strange. And then the next step is taking a selfie. And I just pointed my device's camera at myself. That's not what I was testing, to be clear. Right. So like maybe there's issues that I want to know, not about the selfie stuff. I want to know about the document stuff. Right. So I stepped through that. And then I think it was a Saturday night, and I was sat on the sofa doing it, and it worked first time. And I was kind of blown away, and it came up with identity successfully verified, or whatever the message was. When I've done tests before, I created a clone of my voice with AI to break into my own bank account. That took many tries. It was one and done. And after then, I feel like I didn't even need to try it again, because I was like, wow, that was crazy easy. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, there's more that I want to ask you, and we'll get into it. I am curious, though, just in reading this story and frankly the work that 404 Media does. Can you tell us just how did you come across OnlyFake? This is the first time I was hearing about something like this. I mean, I'm not in the market necessarily for something like this, so I understand that plays a role. But what led you to reporting on it? How did you come across it?
Yeah, so it started when the cybersecurity researcher I mentioned actually posted about it on LinkedIn. They were just describing it like there's a service going around that some people are using. They didn't provide the URL, I believe. I went and I figured that out myself. And then, just through trial and error and looking around online, I was able to find it and create an account. What I also did was find the respective Telegram groups. So it's very easy to go on Telegram nowadays, the messaging app, and find all sorts of criminal activity. Like the old days when you used to have to download Tor and like go to the Silk Road or Alpha Bay or these other underground markets with very long, complicated URLs. That's just not the case anymore. You go on Telegram, you can find stuff instantly. So I did that with OnlyFake, and I found their official channel, and then 2 other group chats, which are really interesting, a Russian language one and an English language one, and they are used by people who are presumably users of the service, or they're at least interested in it. And you go in there and people are talking about, hey, I'm trying to do this. Can anybody help out? Hey, I have a driver's license for Minnesota or whatever. And they're trading, tips and tricks to even go beyond OnlyFake and try to bypass stuff like live video verification with some mixed results. I haven't seen like a slam dunk that people are doing it reliably, but they're sharing videos in those chat rooms of at least them trying it.
So it can be one tool in the toolkit for these folks, and you start here and kind of build on that. That is wow. So, of course, we know humans have been creating convincing fake IDs for some time. It's a lucrative market in theory. What is the upside to using a tool like OnlyFake? And then how does that compare to the sort of actual human creation of fake IDs?
Yeah, I would guess the main benefit is just the incredible speed. From the moment I clicked generate to the moment I had the ID, it was minutes, if not 1 minute. Like the actual most time consuming part was typing in the information I wanted. And if you were a criminal who knew exactly what they were doing, you could do it a hell of a lot quicker than I did, right? So the first one is the speed. I guess there is sort of an anonymity component there as well. Of course, the website's going to see your IP address, but you can connect via proxy, and then you're paying in Bitcoin as well, which, we all know is pretty damn traceable now. But if you handle it properly as a criminal, you'll be able to do that as well. So I'm not trying to advertise the service. I'm just laying out the security benefits. And just, I mean, basically, to put it in a nutshell, it is better in every single way, unless you specifically need a physical ID. Like, unless you need to go into a bank branch and show them, here's my driver's license or my passport. This is like better in every single way, essentially.
Wow. And this, I think, is where we can kind of break into the specifics, because you talk about how it's not just ID, it's also passport and some other documents. 404 Media actually spoke to the proclaimed owner of OnlyFake. Tell us a little bit about how the service was created in the first place and what's changed over time, except for the most recent update, which we'll talk about in the next question.
Yes. So the creator, they call themselves John Wick, obviously after Keanu Reeves' action star. And then you go through the Telegram and there's all examples of the IDs, and they all have the face of John Wick, which is very entertaining, just on a Russian passport, a British passport, whatever. So in short, well, I'll say two things. We don't know exactly how it works. They say they use neural networks, and that's kind of a broad term. Right. And we don't know whether it's neural networks for a certain part or maybe another. There's unknown questions there. And, we don't know exactly, but we know that it creates exceptional IDs. So I kind of leave that there. As for how it was developed, they did say that they basically built a corpus of all of these other scans of IDs. So they mentioned that, when you need to figure out what a serial number on a certain ID looks like, you look at hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of those IDs. And I presume that applies to other parts of the formatting as well. But at one point, they were even saying, like, hey, I'm looking for IDs, especially on America. Mm-hmm. If you have like a high quality scan of an ID, sell it to me. I will buy it off you. And presumably that was to go into that corpus of data so they could build like this highly accurate tool. Even though we don't know all the specifics, neural networks, AI, or whatever, I mean, there's almost clearly some sort of machine learning going on, or it's either that or he's doing it very, very quickly manually, which I don't think is the case.
Right, understand. And then lastly, after you reported on the service, the site went dark. What do you think happened there? And that leads me to wondering if it was just security through obscurity up to this point. And so then once it had been reported on, then it's like, now we can't be where we were before. Tell me what you think happened there.
Yeah, so John Wick, the pseudonymous creator, didn't tell me this, but this is my read from the situation. I mean, I think they basically freaked out. We published this article, very, very in depth. They then pushed a statement to Telegram saying, you can't use our service for fraud. It's never been used for fraud, despite John Wick telling me that you can specifically use it to bypass verification. Make of that what you will, but it's two contradictory statements, right? And then eventually, yes, the website goes dark. There's nothing on there. And now, interestingly, he says he's going to come back. I will be honest, I did kind of expect that. It was sort of the immediate freak out. And now maybe he's going to come back and apparently ask for your phone number if you sign up, other identity information. I find it very, very funny that he's basically doing a know your customer process on an underground service that's designed to bypass know your customer methodologies. But we'll see what happens. But it almost doesn't matter what the OnlyFake site does now. What is much more important is that, this site existed and showed it was possible. Right, and now who else may do it now, and who else may take that idea and start implementing it with, facial deep fakes and that sort of thing, where you could generate the face of anybody you want onto an ID. I mean, that would be the next and almost final step in identity theft. Absolutely.
Yeah. A rather harrowing tale. I remember just yesterday, I think it was, hearing about a situation where a finance worker was on a video call, and reportedly the video call folks were fakes, were deep fakes, and they convinced this finance worker to send money to somewhere else. And so, yeah, this all is just happening so quickly. And this is a full proof of concept in the wild of this technology being used in theory, unless, as you said, it's somebody who somehow can move very quickly and make this happen. It's rather frightening and something we, need to be aware of. And so, as always, I'm grateful that you're reporting on this. Of course, folks can head to 404media.co to check out your work. Is there anywhere else that they should look for staying up to date with what you're doing?
Thank you for saying .co. We can't afford a .com, so I really appreciate that. As an independent media outlet, that is the main place. You sign up for our newsletter and you'll never miss a story from us. But more broadly, you can just follow me on Twitter/X at Joseph F. Cox, or I'm Joseph Cox on Threads, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, Mastodon. Yeah, I mean, you know how it goes now. This is why you just sign up for the email, so you don't have to worry about all of that stuff.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching this little chunk of Tech News Weekly. If you'd like to get the full episode, well, head over to twit.tv/TNW. There you'll find buttons you can click or tap to subscribe to the entire show in audio and video formats. Or just look in the description. We've got links down there as well.